Hello, we want to talk about the English sonnet today, mainly the works of Spenser, Sidney, and Shakespeare. The English sonnet was developed from the Italian sonnet in the 13th and 14th centuries. 14 lines of iambic pentameter, which is 5 unstressed stressed syllables in a line. The rhyme scheme is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. I will explain more about rhyme scheme later. The first 8 lines of a sonnet are called the octave, where the problem or situation of the poem is presented. Next comes the volta, or the turn, which shows a shift in the poem. Then comes the sestet, which offers the solution to the problem or a reaction to the situation. Themes of love, war, and mortality were in cycles or series instead of individual poems, and the use of extended metaphors called conceits were common. The sonnet was introduced to England in the 16th century. It was also 14 lines of iambic pentameter, but the rhyme scheme was often different. A common pattern was Shakespeare's pattern that you see here for his rhyme scheme. The octave, volta, sestet pattern was common. You would also have 3 quatrains or 4-line stanzas with a volta, followed by a heroic couplet, which is 2 lines of rhymed iambic pentameter. Themes in the English sonnet were similar to those in the Italian sonnet, also in cycles, and also using conceits or extended metaphors. We will look first at Edmund Spenser's sonnet cycle called the Amorati, or the Little Loves. Spenser is primarily known for his long allegorical morality poem called The Faerie Queene. The best definition of allegory is a character or story element that represents people or abstract qualities in addition to the literal meaning. This allegory has many layers. It's a historical allegory that honors Queen Elizabeth, but it's also indicative of the time's religious divisions between Protestants and Catholics, and is a fascinating, complex epic as well, with knights, ladies, fairies, sword fights, and dragons. If you want to read The Faerie Queene, you can find it in the textbook. Spenser's cycle of sonnets, called the Amorati, is about his courtship and marriage to Elizabeth Boyle, his second wife, and is unusual for a sonnet series because it ends happily with their marriage. We are going to take a look at one of the sonnets and analyze it. You will want to listen carefully because you will need to analyze a sonnet on the next exam. Stop the video so that you can read the sonnet. And now we are going to analyze the sonnet. First, let's look at the rhyme scheme. To determine the rhyme scheme, look at the end of each line. The first line you will label the last word with an A. Now look at the second line. Does the last word rhyme with the first line's last word? No, way does not rhyme with wide, so you would label it B. Guide does rhyme with wide, so you would label it A. Astray rhymes with the last word in the second line, so it would be a B, and so forth. Now let's look at the rhythm. It is iambic pentameter, which means an unstressed, stressed syllable and 5 beats to the line. You can hear it if you sound it out, if you clap it out. Like as a ship that through the ocean wide, by conduct of some star doth make her way. Now I'm exaggerating that, but that is the way you can hear the rhythm is very distinct. Some sonnets have iambic pentameter all the way through. Some sonnets will break at certain points, especially sometimes around the volta. So when you're analyzing a sonnet, you want to figure out if there are any lines that break the iambic pentameter rhythm. The conceit that is used in this poem is the extended metaphor of a ship on the ocean. The problem is introduced in the octave. The ship has lost its way and cannot find where to go and is in great peril. The first 8 lines present this problem. The volta comes at the very beginning of the sestet. The word yet is the turning point. Oftentimes words like but or yet will be used to show the turn. In the sestet, we see the solution to the problem of the lost ship, and it is the love of his life, who is the lodestar. The lodestar in navigation was the star that the ships used to navigate the waters. Halice is the name of a goddess, but also it is the name of Ursa Major, which was a constellation that the sailors of the day would use to navigate their ships. So we continue with the extended metaphor with the conceit of navigation and a ship on the waters, and we see the woman that he loves being compared to the lodestar that's going to guide him back to safety. The heroic couplet expresses how until that time, until he is rescued by her, he will continue to wander. The ship will continue to be on the waters and not have mooring, and he will continue to wander comfortless in secret sorrow and pensiveness. So the heroic couplet captures that dissatisfaction that he still has, but he has the hope of having her, which he eventually does get to have her. So it has a happy ending. The next sonnet series that we are going to look at does not have as happy an ending. It is by Sir Philip Sidney. The cycle is called Astrophil and Stella. An Anatomy of Love. Most scholars believe that Penelope Devereux is the woman that the sonnets are dedicated to. It's written in English style with Italian, French, and Spanish sonnet elements, and it is more the traditional subject of the unattainable married woman. Take a minute and stop the video to read this poem. In this poem, we have again the octave that introduces a problem and the sestet with the volta at the beginning of the sestet. The conceit in this poem is not quite as evident as in the other one, in the octave. It's really mainly a comparison of his situation to like a writer who has writer's block. He's just not able to get the words out. Then in the sestet, we move to a conceit that shows a comparison to a child and to bearing a child. Even though we do have the turn at the 6th line, indicated with the word but, the poem does shift some in its focus. We don't really have a solution until the heroic couplet at the end, when the poet seems to get over his writer's block and begins to write again. Like the last poem we looked at, this poem consists of 3 quatrains and the heroic couplet, which is very common with the English sonnet. Next, we'll look at Shakespeare's sonnet cycle. To the Beautiful Friend, many scholars believe that was Henry Wriothesley, the Earl of Southampton, who was an aristocratic patron. That was how poets made money in the day. Shakespeare dedicated 2 poems to him, and he's believed by many to be the fair youth of 2/3 of Shakespeare's sonnet series. The final portion most feel is dedicated to the Dark Lady. In part 1, dedicated to the fair youth, celebrating the beauty of the youth and the enduring nature of poetry. Part 2 is again to the fair youth, where he's developing the themes of the destructive power of time and the transcendence of love and poetry. And the final to the Dark Lady. Take a minute and stop the video to read Sonnet 147. This poem is very different than the others that we looked at in some ways, and then the same in others. You see that it's very dark, that this is deep into the sonnet cycle, and he is addressing the Dark Lady. He is obviously infatuated with her and in love with her, but at the same time he is frustrated, and he is expressing these thoughts. It's in 3 quatrains with a heroic couplet at the end. And we could say that the final couplet is where the turn is, but it still does not have very much resolution. The conceit in the first 8 lines is a physical sickness, and then that moves in the sestet to a mental sickness. That is the primary conceit, is that of sickness. And at the end, we do have the 4, for I have sworn thee fair and thought thee bright, who art as black as hell, as dark as night. So it's very negative, no real resolution to it, more resignation. And that is typical of Shakespeare's sonnets at the end of the cycle. Many people see the sonnet cycle of Shakespeare to be like a play almost, a tragedy, which is very interesting, I think. I hope this lecture was useful in helping you to understand the sonnets that were written during the Elizabethan time period by looking at these poems, one by Spenser, one by Sir Philip Sidney, and one by Shakespeare. You will need to be able to analyze a sonnet on the next exam. So you might want to go through, if you did not already take notes, and be sure that you get some notes to use on the exam. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me.